Welcome to the Ball and Breakfast podcast with Wayne. I am Patrick. Going back to the NFL, we had a lot of flurry of activity, this week and the first week of free agency. So, we're just going to cover where everything has been through, the first handful of days here of free agency. We're going to go over, our Chicago Bears, see where, things are currently standing. And then in the same right, we're going to look at, the rest of the free agency landscape, talk about some winners, some losers and all of this. And, a lot more around the NFL. So why don't we just get started here? I'll pass it over to Wayne with a early analysis of what Chicago's been up to.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. So, I definitely have been kind of struggling at work because I just been looking on Twitter and clicking refresh, looking at Ian Rappaport's Twitter handle, looking at Adam Schefter's Twitter handle, and just seeing, is anything happening? Like, what's happening here? So, but yeah, the Bears, I think we've signed a couple, free agents here that I think sets us up pretty well heading into the draft overall. Maybe overall, if I were to give a grade of, we're shooting on Wednesday, March 13th here in the evening. And, I think what I've seen so far is it seems like, and lo and behold, like Ryan Poles, like this is what he's always been doing. He doesn't reach, he doesn't overpay for free agents, right? And I've been kind of thinking about this, right? It's like when he does pay for a free agent, usually it's by acquisition, usually with draft capital through the draft, like with the DJ Moore, right? Or through Montez Sweat, right? Those are all acquisitions where he traded picks for those players. I think Edmonds is like the highest paid player that he's signed through straight up free agency. So just goes to show, I think Poles really just wants to get the best value of each of these players that he has. So I think, I'll just go read off and talk about some of the signings, re-signings. Obviously, the biggest re-signing is Jalen Johnson. You're talking about, PFF had him ranked as the number one cornerback this past year and had a career year. Had, I think, like 4 or 5 interceptions and had, one of the best coverage grades of all time, I think, or one of the best coverage grades from any quarterback in recent memory. So overall, great. one off the bat there. And then we also got DeAndre Swift, right? 3-year, $24 million contract. I think that really solidifies the running game, with no Deontay Foreman and with Khalil Herbert reaching the last year of his contract. Roschon Johnson, young running back, has a lot of potential, but I think from the Bears' perspective, they just saw that there was a good amount of running backs out there that they think that would enhance the running back room. And I think DeAndre Swift, good for catching balls out of the backfield and then just running in general, especially when they upgrade the line. Gerald Everett, I think, was the other piece here too. Tight end, 2 years, $12 million deal. Very team friendly deal. Just 2 years, and for tight end 2, I think really excellent signing. So I think the fun fact was that he was picked just like 1 pick ahead of Adam Shaheen, actually. So and then I guess rounding things off a little bit here, Kevin Byard, 2 years, $15 million contract here at that safety position. Cutting Eddie Jackson, I think he kind of fits in right in there. And you're talking about a safety that is, multiple time Pro Bowler, going to be a little bit older, 29, 30 years old type of range there when the season starts. But at the end of the day, like one of, I guess, the best safeties in the game, especially if he can play up to his potential. So, a couple of more depth signings here and there, but overall, I think, I kind of like what Poles has done, and it definitely. I know a lot of Bears fans were frustrated that we haven't signed like Daniel Hunter and such, but at least I think right now it sets us up for the future for being flexible. We see all these like players getting cut here and there, right? And it's like, oh, maybe we could sign them. There's a potential that we could sign like Mike Williams, who's been released today. Who else I see? But yeah, several other players just get released and cut, and it's like maybe they could potentially fit into our team. I know Khalil Mack too. I think there was conversations about him being cut. So Arik Armstead, right? He just got cut. So there's still a lot of players that teams are just, hey, maybe the numbers don't match up. We need to get rid of you. And maybe we see a cheaper option in free agency. And then, yeah, the Bears can pick them up. So all in all, I kind of give it a B. I think there's some solid ground that has been made up from our overall team roster, but still some things I think that need to be done, especially at, I think, the defensive line and maybe a wide out. I think a couple of those roster spots can be filled out.
Yeah, yeah. I'm on board with it. I'm kind of like in the wait and see approach. I also don't think that Poles necessarily has to go out and blow our entire load when it comes to our cap space. So it's if you think about where we're at now, Poles came in the middle of that pace um Nagy regime in terms of, Fields had been drafted, they already had a year under the belt and things like that. That wasn't necessarily his quarterback and his choice in his tenure. So in a lot of ways, like he has kind of reset his own clock. Like we get Caleb Williams, we're back to year one in a lot of ways. I mean, so I think that affords him a little bit of time. I think it affords him a little bit of, space to kind of do what he needs to do. But I agree in the sense that we don't need to go out and make any sort of panic signings just to prove that we're all in. And even if we are to say we're all in, like, is this the year that you need to go all in? I mean, Green Bay is going out and doing a lot of things. Detroit obviously was, a few decisions away from being in the Super Bowl this year. That could sure as hell happen next year as well. So it's like, we're bringing in a year one quarterback, most likely. And in a lot of ways, we're hoping that he has CJ Stroud type of upside to get us, into the playoffs. So if that's kind of where we're standing, no need to go out and, go crazy. And I'm with you. I hear a lot of Bears fans getting upset about Hunter, getting upset about why didn't we go out and sign one of these top wideouts? I know Calvin Ridley signed today as well. But, I'm kind of looking down the list and I'm like, there's still some names out there that we could pull in at some of those other spots. Before I get there, just looking at the science, like kind of piggybacking off what you said, we have solidified that secondary now. If Eddie Jackson was one of our liabilities at starter, Kevin Byard, even though he's not, let's say, in his own prime, I mean, a couple-time Pro Bowler, All Pro, still very effective in his last season here with Tennessee and Philly. I think a guy on a 2-year deal, like just 2 years, just to get him there and kind of be, fortifying that free safety spot. I mean, even if he doesn't, become an all pro, I still think that's a very safe signing. Somebody with that, kind of experience. And then to kind of back him up, you got Jonathan Owens, Simone Biles, husband there in Green Bay who, laid the hits down on, Justin Fields last year. But it's like, I kind of like that as just another secondary depth signing. I feel like we don't have to do a whole lot more now going into the draft, at the safety position, which was, something we were keeping our eye on. I agree that the Gerald Everett signing is pretty underrated, just in terms of, him catching about 50 balls last year and being, somebody who's worked with Waldron in Seattle. I think that's nice to have a little bit of that leadership familiarity there. It's kind of like rounds into his year 30, season. And then DeAndre Swift, that's the one that, it's kind of a thumbs up, thumbs down for me. I think that we did need kind of like that change of pace back. We needed a guy who's more of like, maybe your third down back if he's not necessarily like going to be your workhorse. And I don't think we can really rely on Swift to be that. I think the positives are if we do go with a trio of backs there, we really rely, still on Herbert and Roschon to carry, the in between the tackle carries and kind of the workload. Having Swift there is like your swingman game breaker, like that's kind of nice. And I hope they keep him to that. And that'll make sure that 3-year deal, turns out to be somewhat worth it. I think the thumbs down for me is the price tag on it and the injury risk that he comes with. That's the one, part of this that I'm kind of a little bit concerned about, once we get into, years 2, years 3, because he doesn't really have that, durability, in his back pocket. And when we see guys like Aaron Jones, go after getting released by Green Bay for 1 year, $7 million. I mean, I was sitting there like, damn, I wish we were going into this year with Aaron Jones as, our guy for 1 year. Like that'd have been amazing. But Yeah, I have more thoughts on who's still out there, wide receiver and edge, but yeah, we'll just stop there.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I think we can definitely talk about the future still free agents out there. But yeah, I think one thing with the signing of Swift is Waldron really likes his running backs. We looked at what they did over in Seattle, right? They had Kenneth Walker, and then they're like, that's not enough. Let's get Charbonnet in there. So like both were high, I think second, third round picks there, if I'm not mistaken, from the Seattle Seahawks, and pretty well known coming out of college. So he definitely likes to utilize the running back position and on multiple fronts, and isn't afraid to give him the ball either from the backfield or just pass out of the backfield or just running it straight up. So I'm all for it. I think it's helpful. We'll see always about the price tag, but yeah, to me it wasn't so bad. Aaron Jones, that was definitely a fun one to see that whole carousel happen with the Packers. But I'm like, man, it's a cold lead. Like, let him get his money. He got, I think, a 1 year, $7 million deal, right? Gonna stay there in the division. I wonder if that was intentional. So, but hey,
100%.
yeah.
Hundred
I was like,
percent.
you know what? I'm gonna stay around here, and I like my Midwestern cooking, and I'm gonna come back at you, face you twice a year, make you regret it a little bit. But I don't know, like Josh Jacobs, like one of the better. We were talking about this last week, right? One of the better running backs in the game, and got a pretty good deal there, I think, for if I'm the Packers in that perspective. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess, just kind of looking at what else is out there. I mean, that's why I guess I'm still not super panicked, because I think here's
Mm-hmm.
my big thing is like we're holding the number 1 pick, we're holding the number 9 pick, we're going into this draft. I think if I was to gain any sort of confidence right now, and again, we're looking at year 1 of a rookie quarterback team here, but it's like we just need to sign one wide receiver or one edge as we go into this draft. And I really do feel like it's going to more or less be this edge and maybe that wide receiver 3. But, we've talked about guys like Curtis Samuels, Tyler Boyd. We've got KJ Osborne's out there. Unfortunately, like MVS is still there. Michael Thomas, Michael Williams both got a cut. OBJ is there. And then if you want to get crazy, one thought I had was, what if we did some sort of trade down of the 9 pick, flipped it with the Bengals 18, and see what they want beyond that for T Higgins, and then try to go for an extension of T Higgins or something of that sort at our wide receiver 2. That's if we don't think like Neighbors or Dunze would be there at 9, but I'm just saying. I think with the edge, it's a little bit thinner of what's left. Like I see Chase Young. We talked about Clowney, maybe Emmanuel Ogba or Mac or Bosa in that sense. But I mean, if we were to go ahead and sign just either or on one of those positions, I think off season would be fairly okay. If we think the center position is also like in a good spot right now with Ryan Bates or whoever else they may, go out and draft. We'll just have to see. But as of right now, I'm not here throwing up my arms or panicking like a lot of the Bears fans I've heard so far.
I mean, I think this, at least the way that things have been unfolding, and granted, free agency isn't over yet. How do the Bears not trade back from here? Like, I feel like one of those picks they got to trade back, and like I was thinking, I was like, are they going to keep Justin Fields in a way? Like, I feel like with everything that's been kind of happening here, like, if there was a slim chance of them keeping Justin Fields, like this kind of goes into that narrative there. But I think we've both been talking about like, hey, Caleb Williams. I think he's been more so the person. That's what all the momentum I'm hearing of as, and maybe now I'm a little bit more in favor of keeping or drafting Caleb Williams. But yeah, like that 9th pick, right? You talked about edge rusher, and if we are able to trade back from there, I think one thing to keep an eye out on is what does that 5th round or that 5th pick from the Chargers, like what happens there? Do they trade back to a team that wants to get maybe JJ McCarthy? I think that's like one thing, because what could happen then is, hey, maybe the Chargers do want to keep that pick. Maybe they keep, maybe they do select, I don't know, Brock Bowers or Joe All or something like that there. And then, because, hey, look, Harbaugh really likes his linemen. He usually builds from the trenches. So if that's the case, then yeah, maybe they move back. And then, yeah, Denver, maybe they move up. Or the Vikings, maybe they move up to that fifth position and get JJ McCarthy there. Like that could be something, or maybe one of the quarterbacks drop. Something like that could happen and occur. And I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. So yeah, I don't know. Overall, if that fifth pick gets traded, and somebody selects the quarterback, then there's gonna be a snowball effect, I think, happening there in the ninth pick for the Bears. I don't know how many more trade partners that we could possibly get from there, but I definitely see them probably trading back from that pick, from the ninth pick, and then maybe it's Seattle, maybe they do want to select Michael Penix Jr. or Bo Nix. Like all those quarterbacks can be a possibility there, but I don't know. Yeah, we'll see what happens there. I just because kind of want to point that out and call that out, and thinking like, yeah, if they select Caleb Williams, then we're still out a wide out. We're still out, that edge rusher, at least for now, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for right now, I see that. Just in terms of what could be there. I mean, with your scenarios, I think the other thing that I was thinking about with the Calvin Ridley signing today for Tennessee, who I think is the number 7 drafter, we've been talking a lot about will they go get Odunze or Neighbors. I think that takes one less, team off the board for us to worry about because, I mean, with the Ridley signing, they now have Hopkins and Traylon Burks, and it's like that just seems very redundant. And a lot of what Tennessee's been doing, who, I may talk about later, but it's like it looks like the offensive line is the one thing that they didn't necessarily address super hard in this free agency class. So I'm thinking like my eyes are on them going right for one of those tackles or potentially just trading out of that spot.
Yeah, no, I mean that's definitely a good call out there. I agree on that sentiment. Whether it's Olufishano or Joel Alt that goes there, it'll also be we'll also have to keep an eye out on who the Giants get. Right, they definitely need offensive line help, but it's hard to say no to Malik Neighbors or Roman Dunze there. So they do have a little bit weapons. They do have some weapons here and there, but not necessarily a game changer in my opinion. I think is what Giants fans are saying. But yeah, like they certainly need some offensive line help, for sure. So yeah, and then I know because yeah, I think just going through there is like what the Cardinals are at 4. I know that they released Humphrey, but I'm like they drafted Paris Johnson Jr. last year, so I think he slides over to the left tackle, and then I think they also just signed was it Jonah Williams or Jonah was it Jonah
Yes.
yeah, Jonah Williams, right? Yeah,
You're
from
right.
the Bengals. So he's going to slide there in right tackle. I think they're solidified on the tackle position. So they're going to get Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably what is going to occur. And then yeah, that fifth pick, we'll see what happens. I know the Chargers they traded or they released Mike Williams, right? But they drafted Quentin Johnston, right? I think last year. Words out on him. He can't run routes. He can't catch, but maybe things just look out better for him. Does a little bit of work in this offseason. And yeah, they draft, I don't know, Joe Wilder, they trade back, or they get Brock Bowers, right? I think all those things could be possibilities from there.
Yeah. So I guess like with this, either way, we're going to come out of the draft, I think, with 2 really premier players. And perhaps Poles is being a little bit patient because he maybe has his eyes on some later round picks that can fill, the edge spot, wide receiver spot as well. Maybe with the Justin Fields trade, even though that market is seemingly drying up. I mean, even if we were to nab like a 3rd round pick or something for him, I think we could still make a decent value pick there based on, how deep the wide receiver position looks, at this point for the draft. So I think there is still some hope. And I think the big thing that I'm looking at is, looking at next year's free agency class. Let me just name some names at wide receiver and edge. But wide receiver, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Ayuk, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Keenan Allen, T. Higgins, Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper, I guess DeAndre Hopkins doesn't really fit into that group as well, but still a name. And then at edge, Josh Allen, Trey Hendrickson, Hassan Reddick, Matt Judon, Josh Sweat, Jalen Phillips, Kwity Paye, and Josh Uche at edge. So it's like he's got this new blueprint, he's got this new script. I think he's got some leeway. I think they trust him to make those decisions, but save a little bit of that reserve. Get rid of any other fat you need to before even next year. And it's like, let's just be patient still and see how this goes. And I think again for Bears fans, it's like I know everybody's like clamoring and wants us to be like in the Super Bowl next year, but like we're up against it still in the NFC North, especially with Jordan Love taking a step. And if we just need one extra season to be 500 or pushing that, then let's go there. But let's just understand what we're competing against first.
Yeah, that's a good call out because we look at what the Texans were last season, right, with their own rookie quarterback, and when they got Will Anderson too, was that they had a bunch of salary cap space, but they didn't spend it all grabbing whatever they can, right? So, but now this offseason, they've gotten a lot of great deals here, so I think that's good, patient GMing there. We could definitely talk about them more, but. Yeah, I think I think this year it's like, let's solidify, let's put some putty, some sticky putty maybe on the edge or, on the 3-tech or tackle position or DT position there. Maybe we put some silly putty in, interior offensive line a little bit here as well and just get the best available draft the best available players that we possibly can. Even if that does include some sort of a trade back, great. I definitely see this is a great draft to trade back on, and that 9th overall pick spot, I think that can definitely be a good opportunity for some quarterback hungry teams out there.
Yeah, let's hope so. Did you have any other thoughts on Bears or next steps or anything like that with our team?
I mean, players that are still available. I think you mentioned a couple. DJ Wanham, I think he had 8 sacks last season for the Vikings. I think he just had his visit with the Bears today, or I think it's tomorrow actually. So we'll see. Keep him in there. Maybe he signs for a year or two, more depth. I think for the defensive line, and that puts less pressure, I guess, to get a Dallas Turner, Latu, or Jared Verse there with that 9th pick, and then we trade back. We get maybe a wide out in the later first round or something like that. Maybe Jackson Powers Johnson if the Seattle Seahawks we get that pick there, and then maybe we are able to get a 2nd round pick and take whatever best available player is there too. So I don't know, just a couple options, and that really fits. I think kind of what Ryan Poles is all about is not reaching, being very disciplined. He just knows that there's going to be players always available. Kind of just, he takes his time basically on all these acquisitions here. So, Hunter Renfrow, I think that's another name that, from the slot position, like this is a guy that got 100 receptions in a season, made a Pro Bowl, caught 80% of his passes, right? Just a couple of seasons ago. He's battled some injuries, and that's really kind of been, what's off-putting, I think, for him. He just got released, I think, was it today or yesterday? So, if Curtis Samuel, he doesn't fit the right price, if another team, has a higher bid for him, then hey, we'll do what we can there. I think Curtis, if I were to pick, I would probably like Curtis Samuel just because he's been healthier, but a lot worse picks I think to have than Hunter Renfrow. I think he's only like 27, 28 years old at the slot position, and if he's healthy, check his medicals. I think that could be a great acquisition there.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. See where our expenditures go, I guess, for the rest of the off season, but we still have a lot of wiggle room. I think as of yesterday, we had the 4th most cap space, so I think we're in a good spot to make moves if we need to, as others, start to cash out a bit. But speaking of others, do you have any winners? Maybe choose one that stands out the most for you and kind of break it down a little bit for me.
Sure.
So far here in free agency.
I mean, I think we might have mentioned or talked about them before briefly a little bit. I think my main winner. Ah, this is going to be hard, I guess, but I'll go. I'll try to be a little bit different. I'm gonna go with the Texans here. I think they handled it just as well as you can. I think they retained the right talent. They retained Dalton Schultz, tight end. He was as good of a tight end as you could possibly get. I think at that price, 3 year, 36 million. Also retained Desmond King. And then retain also Fairburn, their kicker, even as well. Eric Murray. But then their acquisitions, I think, for the right price as well. And Daniel Hunter, I think 2 years, 49 million. I know like 48 was guaranteed, which normally that's not the case, but honestly, just for 2 years, I think that totally makes sense for them and fits that rookie quarterback contract window. I think that D'Amico Ryans is really just like gunning for there in that organization. So totally makes sense. Danico Autry as well. So really solidifying that defensive line to pair up with Daniel Hunter and then also Will Anderson from last year. Aziz Al-Shair, I think, great linebacker, and having there with D'Amico Ryans, perfect, I think fits. So defensive wise, I think they're great. And they also added Jeff Ukoda, a highly touted prospect, hasn't lived up to the expectation. 1 year, $4 million, kind of a flyer contract. I think that could be a great signing there. So overall, oh yeah, and then Joe Mixon, right? Like, got a couple of 1,000-yard rushing seasons here and there, and then gets traded, with the Bengals there. So I think that's a great signing. I know they no Singletary anymore there, but I mean Mixon, I think very running behind that line, I think that'll be great. I think for him. So, maybe, hey, if I'm a fantasy owner or a fantasy team, to maybe take a look at him because I don't know if they got too much other running back depth there. So, that could be something to look out for, especially with that really explosive, offense that they have there. So, I think that's like one team that was like, and this is a team that won their division, right? And, this was kind of expected, had some of the most cap, I think top 5, right, heading into this offseason, and they won the division last year. So look out, for this team.
Yeah, they absolutely nailed it. I mean, as far as their needs went, they just went above and beyond that line. Thinking about rotating, Autry, Hunter, Anderson. I mean, I know they lost Greenard, which is pretty big. But same sense, like that's a really nice rotation to have. Mixon, I think just adding that veteran presence to the offense is going to be huge. I think he still has some left in the tank. He's a better running back than Singletary, and hopefully he can, help Pierce kind of get back to being the in between the tackles guy that he was in his rookie season. So, I mean, I think they have pretty much all the tools right now that they kind of need to get him over the hump. I think they also re-signed Noah Brown, but their whole stable of wide receivers, Stroud taking another step, and then next year, and then an improved defense. I mean, they shined in that first year. They look like they kind of set themselves apart from Jacksonville at the very least. So, yeah, man, they were definitely winners on my list. So, I had them start here. I picked a AFC South rival of theirs as my favorite team so far in free agency. I just think with the dearth of signings that they went out and kind of landed, some of which made me pretty jealous as a Bears fan. But the Tennessee Titans, to me, kind of loaded up. I'm kind of looking at just the overall talent that they amass. I don't necessarily love all the contracts piece by piece, but to bring in Calvin Ridley, just a clear option, across from DeAndre Hopkins, I think that instantly provides credibility to the receiving core. Definitely helps Will Levis out in his first kind of full season as a NFL starter there. They brought in Mason Rudolph as well as his backup. I think at the very least Mason Rudolph can be a good veteran presence for Will Levis, and also if Levis happens to do some of the stuff that he does, they've got somebody who's played pretty well and had some playoff experience last year with the Steelers. They brought over Kenneth Murray at linebacker on the defensive side of the ball, as well as Chidobe Awuzie from the Cincinnati Bengals at corner. So couple of guys that have definitely, have veteran experience, can help bolster that defense. And then missing out on two other guys here, Tony Pollard coming over on the same deal that DeAndre Swift got. I know he had, not the season, Dallas wished he had for, kind of stepping into that starter's role, but I still feel like, he's got a lot in the tank and can be, pretty good running back for them. And then they signed Lloyd Cushenberry at center from Denver, which was the guy on our list. So it's kind of like, I'm just looking at, the amount of people that they've brought in that are, true starters in the NFL. And then they've also been rumored to be talking to Eric Armstead as well on defense. So, they didn't have the best of years last year, and obviously they lose Autry and Alshire to their top rival. But, I think for what it's worth, they brought in, some pretty big playmakers, some pretty big names there, and, could definitely take a step with Levis if they, go out and get some more offensive line help, and obviously probably continue to bolster the defense.
Yeah, I mean, and they replenished that linebacker Shire with Kenneth Murray there. So it's like, I think they did a solid job in free agency. Did they overspend? Yes, I think that's as true as says. I think they overspent. I mean, Calvin Ridley, right? Does he deserve? Is he worth a 4-year contract, right? At age like 30 now, probably not. So, but at the same time, you got him signed. You got DeAndre Hopkins and Ridley, like 2,000-yard wide receivers. Albeit they're a little bit older, but with Levis and trying to develop his talent, I think that just makes sense there. But Lloyd Cushenberry, that was the one that hurt. I think it was like $12 million a year, $13 million a year. Looks like here. So I mean, I think I talked about that as like, is that maybe an overpay? Yeah, but for one of the top, centers, was graded, I think, the second best pass protecting center in the game last year. I think that totally makes sense for them and what they're trying to build, with Levis there and that wide receiver core. Wuze to Nick Folk. I mean, one of the, old reliable kind of kicker there. So like overall, I think they're, solid so far. Pollard for sure, didn't have the best year. 3-year deal. I mean, I think that's the thing with running backs. It's like 3-year deals. It always feels like 1 or 2 is probably how it is usually. So, but at the end of the day, they got them signed. We'll see. They have the cap space, the cap flexibility there. So in the end, it's like, can you really fault them for doing all that? No, not necessarily. But at the end of the day, are they a better team now this season or going into next season? Yes, I think they are, and sets them up pretty well, I think, for this draft. Probably had to take a tackle there. I think with the 7th pick, right? So, but yeah, overpay at the end of the day, but they made the acquisitions they needed to.
For sure. Any other winners you'd want to throw out there?
I mean, that whole division is interesting, right? Like, I'm kind of I think one thing I'm impressed about is maybe the teams that they didn't necessarily acquire new talent, but they re-sign a lot of their current talent, right? And maybe they had some success last season and they believe that they can build off going into next season. And one of those teams, I had 3 teams that did a lot of that. Was the Colts, the Bucks, and then the defending champions, the Chiefs, right? Like, incredible, I think, how the Chiefs, we're talking about this, I think, in previous episodes for the Chiefs, right? Of how is this all going to work with Snead and Jones? But then, Mahomes, he restructured his contract. And they're probably not going to bring back Donovan Smith. We'll see what happens with regards to if they're able to, pick up a left tackle, vet minimum or something like that. I think Tyron Smith's floating around there. Maybe they are able to negotiate some sort of contract with him. Like overall, I think those three teams, I think they kind of improved by just retaining a lot of their talent there. Bucks, re-signed both their safeties and then also Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans as well. Like, I think that's, pretty solid overall. No Shaq Barrett anymore, who, had some really good seasons with them, but that contract was kind of eating them away, and that really freed up a lot of flexibility for them. So kind of like good GMing is sometimes just being boring and retaining your talent, moving some cap space. And, I think those three teams are better going on into next season now. The Colts now, hopefully Anthony Richardson is healthy, but even if he does get hurt, guess what? Joe Flacco's there now. So, a lot of possibilities, I think, for all three of these teams just by simply retaining, resigning the talent that they have there.
That sounds pretty good. I think the only other team that I wanted to throw out there, just like in terms of amassing a lot of talent, it's going to take a while for them to get back to where they need to be. But I mean, Washington Commanders went out and definitely added a lot of bodies, to their roster. I mean, Austin Eckler, Zach Ertz. They brought over center Tyler Biadasz from Dallas, back to Dan Quinn. So it's kind of a steal on that front. And then at least defensively, I mean, they brought Dorrance Armstrong as well over from the Cowboys, signed Clelin Ferrell, Frankie Louvu off Carolina for a 3-year deal. They got Bobby Wagner, Jeremy Chin, and then also signed Brandon McManus as kicker. I was just kind of like, they've just kind of made their presence felt. I mean, they need a lot of different things based on the amount of D-line talent that they've lost, and Cameron Curl kind of being out there as a free agent safety. They're probably going to the draft to get a quarterback, so having Mariota there as a new signee is also important. But yeah, I don't know. I can't necessarily say as a team they're truly a winner, but I'm kind of looking at who really stepped into free agency, who really addressed a lot of the needs that they had, going into next year. And I think swapping out Antonio Gibson with, possibly an upside play in Eckler could be interesting for Washington. But, that division is going to be pretty tough as it usually is. But yeah, I'll just stick with that, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, the Commanders, I think they're trying to, like, these are kind of like cultural signings, I feel like. And, some of them are setting up themselves up for the future. It's like Bobby Wagner, right, has played with, Dan Quinn, and like, that's a 1-year deal. Like, I think that totally makes sense for him to kind of just come in there. Chin as well, kind of culture setters. And then, Tyler Biadasz, like, I think that's a great center to have there for a rookie quarterback. And then, Allegretti as well. He played in the Super Bowl too. Solid signing. But then, yeah, Zach Ertz and Eckler, I think, again, culture setters there for the offense to help a rookie quarterback. So, I think that's kind of what my perspective is on that. And then, they're going to have a lot of young players coming into next season, right? I am the Commanders. Like, I don't want to trade up and give up a haul, right, for Caleb Williams necessarily. At least that's my thinking, or what I would do. It's like build through the draft. You get 2 second-round picks, early second-round picks in a very deep draft. Like, pick some talent there to help out your young rookie quarterback. Load up on the defense as well. Like, you can do a lot with the draft capital that they have. So, so get that young talent, and then glad that they got some vets that just know how to play the game and are culture setters. So I think that's kind of what their angle is right now. And then mixing that with some talented players, you can clearly see who they want to stick around. Dorrance Armstrong as well. For those 3-year deals. So solid, yeah. Overall, I think for the Commanders, I think they're definitely better than what they were last year. And, with Cliff Kingsbury, I think that'll be interesting.
For sure. How about losers?
Man, losers here. I mean, I'm gonna go with the Vikings. Like, I don't know how I can't go with the Vikings. Losing obviously Kirk Cousins. I think that's a big thing. It just seems like they're kind of in tank mode in a way. I feel like, I know they got Jonathan Grenard, but then they lost Daniel Hunter, Andrew Von Ginkel as well. They got Jonathan Bullard, Blake Cashman. So great, their defense is going to be solid overall. But then the question, I think, is obviously on the offensive side, not having that quarterback. Is it JJ McCarthy? Is it Bo Nix? Or Michael Penix? We'll see exactly there. But I mean, Sam Darnold, sorry, he's just not the guy. Aaron Jones, age 29, running back. I know he's when he does play, he's pretty excellent, but he just has had that history of injuries. So, for me, it's like I think they're a worse team. Is their defense maybe a little bit better? Yeah, but I think their offense is going to be a little bit anemic. Osborne, I don't think he's going to be coming back. And then Jefferson, he's kind of up in question. So, yeah, for me, it's an L on their side. Great that they're able to, now that they don't have Cousins' contract, they're able to, load up on some talent. But I don't think that's the plan. It's what they've lost so far.
Yeah, I mean, once they lost Cousins, I just kind of felt like, Justin Jefferson's probably going to be the next guy out the door, whether it's requesting a trade this offseason or just playing out his contract and moving on, in the offseason. So, I saw there was kind of a competition to sign Sam Darnold. I think everybody's still waiting for him to be that kind of dark horse who revives himself like a Baker Mayfield, but I just don't see it. I mean, and at the very best, maybe he gets to, some sort of competence, but it's going to be for a pretty poor team. I think, Minnesota definitely threw up those signals that, they're kind of retooling at this point, and I would lower expectations as a fan. I did like some of their signings. You kind of already named them on the edge, and Blake Cashman, bringing in Aaron Jones, I thought that was a pretty great signing just for the player himself and just the 1 year aspect of it. I mean, I'd love to have that player on our team, but no, I definitely see the overall loser in terms of, once you let Kirk Cousins go, I mean, that takes a lot of life out of the offense. And while I think his contract is crazy for a guy coming off a torn Achilles, I mean, it is the market of the quarterback in today's game, and he makes Atlanta that much better just instantly.
Yeah, and I mean, we can definitely talk about Atlanta. We kind of made that Ryan Pace move too. I think he's kind of pulling some strings there, getting Darnell Mooney there with a 10-year or like a $10 million, I think 3-year contract there. So good for Mooney. Good for Mooney. But yeah, like that team, at least the Falcons team there, I think they're definitely in the win mode now. It seems like, and yeah, like I think that team's going to be a better team, obviously, going into next season. A lot of people are talking about Kirk Cousins only like one playoff win in like 12 years, but in the end, this team's going to be, I think, a little bit different. They just have so much talent on that roster. Maybe Kyle Pitts is actually going to catch passes this season. It's going to be interesting. I'm excited to watch all that young talent and see what unfolds there. But it's the thing with the Vikings though, is that if they got players and they retain some of that talent, great. Maybe they would be better. Maybe they do get Justin Fields and get a little bit better there. But yeah, they just they lost Cousins, and they kind of pieced back together some other parts that they lost. Getting Grenard, but they lost Hunter. Things like that. I think it was kind of was looking at there, and then we'll see what happens with this whole Justin Jefferson thing, right? I think was it Eifert, the tight end, was talking about like, keep an eye on Justin Jefferson maybe joining the Bengals. I don't know how that's going to work out. Like they can't even keep Higgins. Like how are they going to bring in Justin Jefferson in there, right? But yeah, we'll see what happens, I think, with Justin Jefferson, and if he does still want to stick around there. I think he's talked about like, man, if Kirk Cousins isn't going to be there, what's that going to look like? And he's even talked about how he'd actually be delighted to play with Justin Fields too, right? So this could be interesting how this unfolds if we do see Justin Fields, go to the Vikings. Honestly, like, hey, 3rd round pick, maybe add in the 5th or 6th rounder in there. Like I might just do it, there aren't too many trade partners at the moment. Maybe the Seahawks, we'll see. But yeah, like that could be interesting. If those shifts kind of unfold there. So, but I don't know. Like I guess other teams that maybe they are an L. I don't know. Maybe the Jets. I don't know. I just don't always like the Jets. I feel like, but actually, I'm looking at what they did. I think they made some smart moves. Morgan Moses, John Simpson. That kind of makes me wonder what they're going to do in the draft at that 10th overall pick now. I think both of us have talked about them, maybe drafting that tackle, but I don't know, Morgan Moses, right tackle there. Maybe they do get some sort of explosive wideout or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if not the whiteout, maybe it's Bowers, like some have projected. I did want to throw out a couple losers that definitely stood out to me so far, but kind of looking at Dallas, they've only signed Eric Kendricks to this point. I mean, for a team that was kind of on the doorstep, not really sure what Michael Gallup's going to do, knowing that Tony Pollard's gone. It's like, I don't know if they're going to actually go ahead and try to sign a running back in free agency. I've seen some AJ Dillon rumors going around right now, but it's like, even if that's the guy they end up pulling, they almost seem, assuredly going into the draft, grabbing a running back, their next RB1 in that sense. But it just feels like for a team that fell so flat in the playoffs to just come into free agency and kind of drag their feet. I mean, almost unacceptable. And then, I mean, Buffalo were kind of up against the wall just in terms of cap, but they pretty much let their entire secondary go. I mean, like leaders like Jordan Poyer and Tre'Davious White, and they lost Leonard Floyd the other day. They lost Gabe Davis on the offensive side of the ball. Just doesn't look like they've been able to bring in a lot of impactful talent. They re-signed Deion Dawkins, their top tackle, but it's just a team that was on the doorstep as well, just not putting their foot on the pedal or maybe unable to do so. It's kind of like waiting to see what they may end up being able to pull off here. But it seemed like they had to just shed a ton of cap. Micah Hyde was also in those cuts. So it almost feels like all the heart that was on the defensive side of the ball is now gone.
Yeah, I mean, how come their quarterbacks aren't restructuring their contracts now, huh? Like, Dak Prescott, Josh Allen, I don't know. It's like, yeah, Patrick Mahomes is doing it. Why can't you do it too? But I get it. He's on a mission, and yeah, there's definitely talent that they're really trying to keep there on the defensive side of the ball. But I think that's a good call out there. I think one team that did some really great moves, I think, to kind of replenish their squad is the Eagles, right? I think how can you not mention the Eagles here? Obviously, Saquon Barkley was the big acquisition, but also retaining Landon Dickerson, acquiring C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who they had when they won that Super Bowl, uh, you know, uh, extending Jake Elliott as well, and Bryce Huff. It looks like also I think Josh Sweat is kind of like on the trading block now. Re-signed Brandon Graham. I feel like they've been re-signing Brandon Graham's like 1-year deals for a while. But I think Grant they've kind of just refurbished their team a little bit. They've been kind of planning for things like this to happen. Drafting D linemen, especially with Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter. With Fletcher Cox now retiring. We'll see what happens, now with Jason Kelsey now retired as well. There were some talks, I think, about having maybe Landon Dickerson moving inside, but at the same time, I think he's making like $20 million a year now. So really expensive for a center. So they'll probably, do something in the draft, I think, there. That'd be interesting if they are able to get Jackson Powers Johnson, right? Like more tush push coming. But yeah, I think yeah, they're setting themselves up, I think, fairly well. And yeah, I don't think they're done yet. I think there's maybe talks about Justin Simmons possibly there as well. So yeah, this team could be making they're kind of reloading here, similar to how the 49ers have reloaded. 49ers, yeah, lost a lot of their defensive linemen, but they made some trades here and there, made some smart acquisitions here to kind of supplant some of what they've lost. So, overall, I think this is what good GMs do, especially with the 49ers and that rookie contract. They're able to just kind of figure things out, say goodbye to some players here and there, trade some players here and there, and then kind of retool right now. So, yeah, definitely want to call, I think, the winners of, or the NFC like favorites basically on both sides.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I think that covers pretty much the gamut of kind of the top teams that we've been looking at some teams that obviously came out as losers. We talked about our Bears. Are there any free agents you see on the board you think would be good fits on certain teams? Like, are there any marriages you'd like to see happen? I guess.
Marriages. So let me look at this tracker. See who's still around. I mean, I think we mentioned Tyron Smith, right? I think he's still available, age 33. From the Cowboys, he's been kind of injured here and there, but at the end of the day, like he's still a top tackle. Possibly some teams would say he'd be in the Hall of Fame, right? But yeah, like if honestly, if I'm Tyron Smith, I would see if I can make my way with the Chiefs, right? I think that could be a possibility there. Like, you know, Donovan Smith, he had his ups and downs there, but Tyron Smith, like putting him in there, and then if the Chiefs are able to get draft a wide out, things like that. Magic what happened with Mahomes, and I think that could be really great for Tyron Smith there, winning a Super Bowl. I think that's what he's kind of wants at the moment in his career. Also, Marquise Brown. I'd like to see him possibly, like with the Bears. I think if we aren't able to get Curtis Samuel or I think that's just one possibility. Utilize Caleb Williams' arm, like let him rip it. I think having him and DJ Moore, and then maybe somewhat more of your conventional X wideout, maybe a big body type of wideout, like a Mike Williams. I think that could be good for Caleb Williams, and then use that ninth pick then for an edge rusher, right? I think that could be great there. So I think a couple ones there, and then I think Odell. I don't know what he's gonna be doing. I think he's just gonna be chilling there with Kim K. So I think those are just a couple picks there. But yeah, what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, I mean, I'd love to see Chase Young be a Bear. I think having him as our edge, across from Montez, they have experience kind of working on the same line together. I think it'd be a lower risk, lower, cap type of signing for us. I don't know what he'd command. I haven't seen any figures thrown out there, predictions and things for him, but I think he's got, you know, more left in his game and more left to prove on the field. I feel like he's kind of a post hype, sleeper edge at this point. He's still on the board, so it's kind of crazy to think that. But for us, I think that'd be a huge move. And then I was kind of thinking KC as well with Marquise Brown. I mean, just to kind of like put him in the Tyreek Hill role for Mahomes. I mean, a guy that he could completely utilize to all of his strengths. I think that'd be a fun partnership there. And I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of these guys, Mike Williams, the Mike Thomases, uh, to maybe a lesser extent like an MVS, but I know Buffalo is going to need somebody to replace Gabe Davis there. I think Khalil Shakur can step up and take some of that workload, but I think like you're talking about with a traditional X, I think one of those veterans might pair up well with Josh Allen.
Yeah, I mean Josh Allen, I think he deserves the talent. He deserves all the talent to kind of just come over there to him and everything. So like this is a team that is looking to contend, and especially now with kind of this Stephon Diggs, and does he like really want to be with the Bills and stuff? I think having somebody like that. I mean Odell, like I don't know. That'd be kind of funny if he were to join them there, but I don't know. I think that could be a smart assignment there. But then I think Marquise Brown, it's like he's a explosive wideout. He did a lot of great things, I think, with Lamar. Had some success over there with Kyler Murray, but didn't really have the consistency. So if he is able to have an awesome all-world kind of talent, such as Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, throwing to him, like that could be tremendous. That could really do something for his career. Like maybe if I'm him, I take 1 year with that amazing quarterback, and maybe that builds up to a nice $20 million a year type of contract. So something to think about, Marquise, Hollywood, if you want to go that route. But yeah, I think he has a lot of speed. He has a lot of talent. It's just maybe fit short term with like an awesome quarterback, and yeah, make your millions. Maybe make more money. Also, another time.
Sure. Well, yeah, I think, if there's nothing further here on the NFL, if you have any other final thoughts, Wayne, feel free to throw them out there. But, otherwise, just a complete rundown here of our, free agency breakdown, looking at our Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I mean, overall, it's like I think there's teams overspend. That happens. That's part of it. Except Ryan Poles, right? He's been very disciplined there. Do like I think what the Panthers are doing again, similar to what the Tennessee Titans have done. They've overspent, but at the same time, I think they have the luxury to overspend a little bit with getting Damian Lewis, Robert Hunt, like $20 million for a year for a guard. Like, I'll be a really great guard, but $20 million is pretty outrageous. That being said, they can do that and get that protection for Bryce Young, and then adding Deontay Johnson, I think excellent. Getting him more weapons there is great for him. So, but yeah, I think overall this free agency kind of just shows like, hey, a lot of the great things can happen. I think sometimes we get fixated on the big names, and then lo and behold, a Mike Williams is being cut, or Arik Armstead is being cut, and now it's like, oh, maybe the Bears, maybe we can get him. Things like that just happen all the time in free agency. So I think a lot of this is just wait and see. It's a cutthroat league, and then you just got to adapt. So overall, from the Bears' perspective, I like what I'm seeing, and from just kind of seeing what's happening, what's out there. Kind of interesting things just shaking up there. I do like the acquisition. I think we both called it for Russell Wilson to join the Steelers. I think that totally makes sense. I think fantasy-wise, I think George Pickens, his stock is going pretty up now, especially with Deontay Johnson not going to be there anymore. So some things to just keep an eye out on there. But overall, just a great time, fun time, I think, with free agency starting. And then, now heading into the draft, that's going to be even better there. So, but yeah, Pat, do you have any other final thoughts?
The only other thought that came to mind when you kind of called out Carolina is just like, they seem to have gone in like some circles here. Like they bring in Deontay Johnson, who's kind of like their new DJ Moore, like at least trying to be. They made that trade of Brian Burns, which on the surface looked okay because it's like, okay, you get a second, you get a fifth, and you don't have to pay the guy max money. And his contract was tremendous. I mean, 5 years, 150, a lot of guaranteed dollars. Like that's crazy. I mean, it's almost crazy for his level of production too, because he's not, to me, at the same ilk of T.J. Watt or Nick Bosa or somebody who could probably command that type of dollar. So that's one part of it. But then you also look at the fact that a couple of years ago, the Rams offered 2 firsts and a second for Burns, and they shook it off. So you kind of look at what Carolina's been doing. They made the big trade to bring in Bryce Young, and it's like, man, just whoever's behind that wheel is just not sober. And it's like, why would you have not pulled the trigger on that Burns trade a couple years ago if you weren't going to extend him and could not get that done? It's just like there's just no rhyme or reason for it. So now when I look at what they're attempting to do to kind of backtrack, bring in a guy like Ashawn Robinson, a pair of guards, Josie Jewell. I mean, I like some of the players they brought in, but it's like it keeps going in this like circle of mediocrity for them, and it's like I wonder when a team like that will get out of the cellar.
Well, I think from my understanding is it's Dan Morgan, right? The linebacker for the Panthers. He's the new GM. But yeah, like the old GM got fired and everything. I think that's what happened there. And then now he's kind of cleaning things up a little bit. So like that, those 2 first rounders, that should have happened. Like, why'd you think twice about that? Because who has your first round pick? The first overall pick, the Bears, right? And you could have used that pick. So, and then you didn't also, you drafted the wrong quarterback, supposedly right now, right? So, a lot of I think misses, and that obviously cost them a job there. But yeah, I think hopefully, Dan Morgan, kind of like what I'm seeing right now, at least spending money on some talent, around the quarterback. I think that makes sense. And then, yeah, they're not in position to pay an edge rusher that much, like you said. That's like TJ Watt, Nick Bosa money or something, but that isn't Brian Burns and his maybe a dozen sacks here and there type of production. It's maybe more of like the 25 million, like Daniel Hunter type of realm, if that. So, yeah, I think that makes sense for him if that's kind of what was happening. Was just they're not going to be looking to probably win, maybe next year, but maybe the years after that when they do have a first round pick. Maybe that is something that they can work with there and have that cap flexibility to, spend more elsewhere.
Sure.
Well, I guess with that, that's the NFL for this week. With Wayne, I'm Patrick. Please leave us a like, follow, subscribe wherever you may be at. Give us a review. We always appreciate it. Check out our sponsors below, and we'll see you next time.